Ew, gross, no! Filler, a plague that spreads to any anime with more than 25 episodes. Naruto, Bleach, Gintama, Dragon Ball Z, all of Boruto, and unfortunately, the future Pirate King himself has fallen victim to this very virus a few times as well. Back when One Piece actually had decent pacing, the anime was like quickly catching up to the manga, so they needed to take action. Starting from Logtown, they added a lot of filler since the manga in the original was so short. However, that wasn't enough. They needed more, and thus, Warship Island was born. A story later adapted into a light novel and was initially planned to be a movie. Honestly, this concept just sounds way more interesting than the first One Piece movie we actually got. A lot of One Piece filler nowadays is just stretching the canon material to a crawl with, or having episodes to promote an upcoming movie. In the past, One Piece filler had original story arcs, which honestly weren't that bad. Okay, they kinda sucked. So today, I wanna take a look back at the first One Piece filler arc to see if maybe it could be good enough to be considered canon. Spoiler alert, nope. So ignore the main quest, seek the Fountain of Youth, and binge watch all 3 How to Train Your Dragon movies as we search for Lost Island, home of the Millennial Dragons. After Luffy narrowly escapes death by the hands of the strongest character in the series, the gang leave Logtown and are on their way to the Grand Line. Meanwhile, some random girl is being held prisoner by the Marines. She manages to slip past them and... can never get past this part. Somehow, this one child manages to sink an entire Marine ship full of adults and escapes on a small wooden boat. Back to the Straw Hats as they inch closer and closer to the Alabasta Saga.
Shouldn't we reach the Grand Line soon? What do you think? We just left Logtown 2 days ago. It'll take some time before we get there.
Usopp spots what he believes to be food, and the sole cause of world hunger goes to fetch it. Although Luffy quickly realizes it's actually a person, and just like any JRPG, Luffy swaps out Zoro for their new crewmate. Introducing Apis! Well, on the bright side, at least the filler arc is over. Apis decides to cook for everyone as thanks for letting her stay aboard the ship.
She took the time to cook this feast. The least you can do is eat every crumb.
Sanji, I understand you hate wasting food. I get it, but this is literal dirt.
Girl dinner!
Apis explains how she came from a place known as Warship Island. Nami says they don't mind taking her back to her hometown before heading off to the Grand Line, as it's not too far away. But the time for fun and games is over, as the Marines intercept the Straw Hats. The Straw Hats do manage to escape, but they find themselves in even greater danger, as they've entered the Calm Belt. The Grand Line sits in between 2 thin strips of ocean known as the Calm Belt. While it may seem like any other relaxing day, this stretch of ocean is a sailor's worst nightmare, as the winds and water are completely still, causing any ship to be stuck in the middle of the sea. What's worse is this body of water is home to the Sea Kings.
So,
here's my second biggest gripe with this arc. The fact that there's canon material mixed into the filler story. Rather than just being pure filler that you could just skip, they sprinkle in some story relevant parts to it. Then you would just miss out on some plot relevant world building. The Straw Hats do what the Straw Hats do best. Get out of an impossible situation in the least convincing way possible. Then they head to Warship Island. The gang land at Warship Island. Apis's grandpa welcomes them into their home, and while grandpa goes on about the good old days, Apis sneaks out to take care of some business. After a while, Nami and Luffy head out, only to find Apis walking into a cave carrying a bunch of food. They follow her inside, only to find Grandpa Ryu the Depression Dragon, streaming now on Disney+. Okay, this is how I know for a fact we're definitely in a filler arc. Dragons in One Piece? Come on now. Grandpa Ryu is a millennial dragon from a place known as Lost Island, home to Apis's ancestors. Using the bones of a dragon could make the elixir of immortality, which is Commodore Nelson's goal. Apis wants to save Grandpa Ryu and return him to his homeland. However, just like the One Piece, nobody knows where the fuck it is. 1089 chapters and we don't know shit! Come on, Oda! Luffy agrees to help Apis on her quest to find Lost Island. I like to consider Warship Island the dark timeline where Luffy just straight up abandons the One Piece. But the Marines are hot on their tail. With them is the bounty hunter Eric the Whirlwind, who's been hired by Commodore Nelson to capture Apis as she holds the key to finding the elixir of immortality. Eric ate the sicko fruit. Using his nails, he can create sharp blades of wind, making him a sicko man. The gang managed to escape the Marines and are on their way to find a lost island. Welcome to Two Piece! As the Straw Hats sail endlessly, Apis makes a shocking discovery. Thanks to her whisper fruit, she can talk to and understand any animal. Grandpa Ryu says he remembers where the dragon nest is. And not long after, the gang find the fog door from Dark Souls and go through it, only to be met with a harsh storm. However, with Nami's navigational prowess, they power through and find Lost Island.
What'd he say?
He said that this place might not even be the actual Lost Island.
If I were Luffy, I would just leave Apis there. They enter the ruins and uncover the lore nobody cares about. Above them is a map that explains where Lost Island is. And you won't believe this twist, guys. Warship Island is Lost Island. I need a gun.
Oh man, are all millennial dragons as useless as he is?
And just like your clingy ex, Eric the Sicko can't leave the Straw Hats alone for 5 minutes. Zoro stays behind to fend off the Sicko while everyone else runs away. It's okay, DJ. It's almost over. Eric doesn't have time for games. He traps Zoro using a tree? You fiend! There's nothing that Roronoa Zoro, master of 3-sword style, soon to be world's greatest swordsman, who's carrying 3 very sharp and powerful blades, can do about a tree? He'll have to find another way! Luffy grabs Zoro and they leave the ancient ruins.
What? I don't... You know what? It ain't worth it.
Now that the Straw Hats know their destination, they head straight back to Warship Island, although Commodore Nelson is 1 step ahead. Imagine the grossest, most villainous, irredeemable son of a bitch you can think of, and triple their weight. Okay? That's half the size of Commodore Nelson. A self-centered, power-hungry slob, Commodore Nelson wants the Dragonite to make himself immortal. Disappointed with Eric's performance, he decides to take matters into his own hands. He calls forth an army of Marines twice the size of a Buster Call. The Straw Hats fight back to protect Grandpa Ryu, while Luffy and Sanji fend off some Marines. Our world's greatest swordsman cuts the steel chains.
Can you cut him?
There isn't anything I can't cut.
Dude, Zoro was so cool. Like, this man just cut steel like it was nothing. I mean, I've heard that Alabasta is the moment when Zoro really shines, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens next. All right, I'll be right back. What the fuck?
This is one of the biggest plot holes for anime onlys because of this filler arc. I mean, here we see Zoro just cut steel like it's butter, but then later in Alabasta, Zoro struggles to cut steel and then can't fight a dude named Daz Bones, who's made of steel. During all the commotion, Eric takes Grandpa Ryu and Apis hostage. Nelson thanks the Sicko for his hard work, although Eric betrays the Commodore, saying how he wants the immortality for himself. Grandpa Ryu, fed up with all this bullshit, gathers the strength to stand up and fight back. However, the Marines are too much even for a millennial dragon, as Grandpa Ryu is badly hurt and at death's door. Luffy hears Grandpa Ryu's final request to protect Apis and Lost Island. Alright, now you're telling me Luffy can just hear the voice of animals and all other things? I swear to God, this filler just keeps making up random bullshit. Before Grandpa Ryu passes on, he lets out one final roar and assembles an army of millennial dragons. Should have done this sooner, to be honest. In probably the coolest scene of this filler arc, Luffy grabs onto the dragon and destroys Commodore Nelson's ship with a single battle axe kick. The dragons swarm Grandpa Ryu's corpse as Lost Island emerges from the ground. Every 1,000 1,000 years, Lost Island appears. This is a sanctuary for dragons and new dragons alike. All seems fine, but our wannabe JoJo villain Eric the Sicko is still alive and kicking, bloodthirsty and determined to get his hands on the elixir no matter what. Eric and Luffy duke it out for the sake of Lost Island. Finally, some action! This arc was getting pretty boring, but with Eric's whirlwind powers, I can imagine this will be a tough fight. With Lost Island saved, the Straw Hats say their goodbyes to Apis.
Apis, you sure you don't want to come?
I'm sorry, Luffy, you wanted Apis to join your crew? All she does is... Plus, you're about to get someone on your crew who not only can talk to animals, but can probably cure cancer too. Apis decides she wants to stay and protect Lost Island, despite the fact it's gonna go back underground and won't resurface for another 1,000 years, and the dragons are just gonna go back into hiding. Remember guys, she's a literal child, so she's dumb as hell. And so, the Straw Hats set sail out of Filler Hell. They reach the top of Reverse Mountain and are moments away from entering the Grand Line. I think this might be the first time a Straw Hat has actually killed someone. After barely escaping the cops, the Straw Hats enter the canon world of the Reverse Mountain arc. To be continued. That's the end of the Warship Island filler arc. Wow, that was boring. I don't know, Warship Island just feels so out of place for One Piece. Like, it's an 8-episode side quest escort mission where we abandon our initial goal of heading to the Grand Line. I mean, I don't hate it, cause I like Eric's powers, not his design, and the idea of millennial dragons are cool, but it just doesn't seem like it fits early One Piece. Plus, there was so much back and forth with going and leaving Warship Island, all the talking and just so little action. Like, again, it's not terrible, it's just boring. But yeah, that's about it. Let me know what you think about the Warship Island filler arc. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole YouTube shebang, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Also, just in case for those wondering why Sabaody is taking forever, it's because...